All right, when it comes to reality TV, yes, it is just fun entertainment, so let's not get too excited about it. But one thing I was wrong about, or maybe wrong about, it doesn't happen often, on Bravo TV, there's this show, The Valley, and I really, season 1 was so excited about it. And season 2, I was like, where is this show going? And then all of a sudden, you got season 3, and it's just really not going anywhere. Obviously, this is the departure of Jax, and this is probably what the big problem of the show is. And I know Danny is a part of the conversation maybe, and there's all these different dynamics, but in my opinion, you know, the real problem of this show is that you need a solid lead. You need somebody strong in the, you know, if this was Real Housewives, center Diamond, center Apple, center Peach, you know, the lead of the show, you need that. And Brittany and her sparkle. I'm glad Brittany's got her sparkle back, but I think we have been led on for too many seasons that Brittany is like this entertaining, sweet. I think I don't know, I'm missing something. And I think The Valley season 3, as I finally, binge watched it again and kind of was like, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. I was wrong that The Valley isn't that bad. I thought it was. But what I was right about is that Brittany is slowing the show down, and we cry and have sympathy for her every second since Vanderpump Rules, when she willingly went into a relationship with a man like Jax Taylor, who is now happy and in love with a publicist. I mean, if one thing Jax did is he always presented exactly who he was. And Brittany, if anything that she's just not fit, in my opinion. Who am I? Who cares? Randomly Ronnie Jr. Hello. Make sure you go to randomlyronniejr.com. And if you want to support all the content that I do, there's over 1,500 episodes. And I did work in radio for over 20 years. Go to patreon.com/randomlyronniejr to support. Once again, patreon.com/randomlyronniejr. But the point is, who am I? My opinion doesn't matter. It's not like Alex Baskin is saying, randomly, Ronnie, what do we think could improve the Valley? But if he were to ask me that question, I would say Brittany is no longer serving the purpose of the show as the lead. Brittany doesn't seem like a horrible person. She seems sweet. But how many times could we see her cry about her not having her sparkle? Oh, I got my sparkle back. It is really slowing the show down. And I've got a lot of faith in the show, The Valley. I do. Because, I worked in radio all those years ago. Burbank has a lot of the studios. I worked for, this company, that company. So I was always running all around Burbank or whatever back in my, was it late 20s, early 20s, late 20s, and even early 30s. Now I'm in my 40s. So I've always loved the Valley. I lived in Studio City. The Valley is something very special, driving on Ventura Boulevard, going to Tahunga Park. I like the Valley. And no, the show wasn't about the Valley per se. It was about the next stage of the Vanderpump Rules cast. I still have a soft spot in my heart that the show The Valley will do well because I spent many years in that area, North Hollywood. Even doing AfterBuzz, we're in North Hollywood at the time, and just so much great energy of up and coming talent, and it was just a cool vibe. So The Valley to me should be a show that does win, and I think it gets success and ratings and it wins, but it's never a fun watch. And I think the lead does need to change. It cannot be Brittany. I don't know if she did well on a Cume rating or something like that, and she just continues to be like the focal point of this show, and she's got her sparkle back. But I just don't think that she's doing enough. Going down the line, so to speak, of all of these people, I think we need more Kristen. The complexities of Kristen and the relationship and all of that is fun to watch. Fun meaning like intense, but also Kristen is always compelling. And to see the growth that she had from Vanderpump onto The Valley is good, but I feel like if anything, we need more of her. Lala is good, but she's almost too good at her job. Lala has a shell or this certain guard about her, which is good. I would also probably feel the same way, having to do this show and how rough all that comes with it. But her launching out at Nia and Danny, it is feeling like too much of a TV show when it comes to that, because it's at that point, it's like it's been expressed. You don't like him. You don't like the way he treats Nia. She still likes him, and they're still in love and they're still working it out. And it gets very tricky, I think, when you get into a relationship, when you judge someone else's relationship and it's not yours, that at one point you do want to throw a couple of opinions to be caring, as what I guess Lala's trying to do with these, exchanges with Danny, is that, she really cares about Nia, and how dare Danny be such a jerk. But I think you have to let people do what works for them. Now, if Nia came to the group and was like, I can't stand dealing with Danny, and I feel depleted, and I feel lost, and I feel like I don't know where to go, that would be a different story. There is a time where you inserting yourself into someone else's relationship does only make you look repetitive. And in this case, it makes you look like, I'm not saying Lala is not really feeling these things, but it makes you look detached from your actual opinions, and you're like, oh, that's very much being pushed and put on for a show. Do I like Danny and Nia? I do, and I also feel like, why are we seeing such like every step of what they do? Because going back to season 1, they were like the perfect couple, and now, like, even though they've made some errors and Danny is a drunk on the show, something he will have to work on, or see himself back on the TV, and wow, this is how I, reacted and looked. It was a bit odd to my character. He's going to have to check that, sure. But I think one thing that is interesting to me is that it's as if they can't do anything right, because I believe the cast, I think they do the show all together, and it's like season 1, Danny and Nia are put on a pedestal. And it almost feels like season 2 and now into 3, there's been these weird coincidences that every story arc, every conversation almost is to throw and add a little lower, lower your take it down a notch, for Danny specifically. I feel like all the gals and all the guys like Nia, but for Danny, it's like they're trying to, expose something about him or whatnot. And I just feel like, what he's doing bad is he's taking that bait, and then he is really showing out and being a bit of a jerk. But I'm just kind of like, you got to live and let live. And Danny and Nia seem to have a great relationship. I think that Zach is interesting. All of the, exploring love, it does seem like such a big emotion for him. That is good for reality TV. Where Zach feels interesting to me on the show, it feels like, whichever way the wind blows, the friendship and the alliances that he has kind of goes in that way. So Zach, to me, seems like a interesting watch. He definitely knows how to poke the bear and all that stuff, but does not strike me as somebody with loyalty. Zach, loyalty, probably words that never really go together. But I guess he's an interesting watch to some degree. I think that Michelle is interesting, as well as Lacey and Jesse, and this whole back and forth. I mean, this is the most entertaining part of this whole show. Michelle, who I don't even think is that interesting on the show, but when you now get to the reunion of season 3, you're like, Michelle trying to explain herself, Lacey trying to explain herself, Jesse sort of sitting in the middle, and knowing that, you got to make sure everything does work with Michelle, because they do still have to raise a daughter together. It's all really good stuff, and it's probably what feels the most like real reality TV, because that is a complex situation. Now, there's no need that Jesse or Lacey or whoever is doing this need to kind of say, well, Michelle was dating this person and dating that person and dating this person and dating that person. And how do we feel about that? We're raising a kid together, and she's got, random people always around. That's a tough situation, but really it is a tough situation, because people who are together, and then when they break up, of the both parties, who do you bring around, and what is your metric of bringing someone around? Or dating so quickly. Like, it's good to get back on the saddle, but at the same time, to expose your family, your kids, with all these new relationships, I think Jesse and Lacey kind of win, because they are stable. Or at least it looks like the love is, lasting the test of time. Whereas Michelle, now dating Dr. Dre. Who would have thought? That was not on the bingo card for anybody season 1, but here's Michelle, who they've always said, remember they made rumors about Michelle season 1. They were like, she's a lady. She's a lady de la noche. She's a lady of the night. Yes. But that's, what was said at the time. And now she's with Dr. Dre. Who would have known? Michelle, to me, isn't the most interesting, but everything she does is like kind of wacky, and you can never put your like, I think this is how Michelle's going to be on this show this season. You kind of like never know what she's going to do. Oh, and with the 3 seasons, I love Jasmine. Hearing about Jasmine's wedding, although you hear about Jasmine's wedding, you hear about Danny being drunk. But Jasmine's wedding, Jasmine, the only thing that we aren't getting with her is we get so much of Jasmine as it relates to the other cast. I want Jasmine as her own focal point, and we follow a lot of her stuff. Obviously, you know, we do see on the season, you know, conversations with her and her mother adjusting to, you know, Jasmine and love and all that stuff, and that is good, but I feel like there's not enough of it. And I feel like she, you know, you take Brittany out of the lead, you know, as the lead of the show, because she's always in the center, Brittany is, and Jasmine doesn't have to be the lead, but like let's give her a little more camera time, some air time, because I feel like Jasmine is really starting to get going. She made the comment that really shocked the whole table, which is, you know, are you overwhelmed, busy, balancing all of these things, or is your bad behavior an excuse you use every time that you do present bad behavior? It's like, oh, because of this and because of that. That was a hard and probably a split of opinions. Some people thought this, some people thought that. That was a hard call out. I don't know that anyone necessarily agreed with her 100%, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that disagreed with her and are like, you have no idea what it takes to balance, you know, with the family and raising kids. Like, you know, it's going to be a split on that one, but at least she did say it, you know, and now we said it. At least she said it. And what's interesting about that, it reminds me of old Vanderpump Rules, where they really like inserted bits of conversation to drive like a little bit of a, well, this is what I think, and then it's either I'm not trying to do that, or you have no idea, and that kind of keeps old school Vanderpump Rules. Now I know this show isn't Vanderpump Rules, though sometimes I wish it would be, because I feel like Scheana needs to come onto the show. I don't know. Am I the only one? Like, the show is missing so much. Who am I missing cast member wise? Janet, I think Janet, I have not had a problem with Janet throughout the seasons. Is Janet opportunistic in ways? Is Janet got this problem, that problem? Sure, but Janet did come to play. She came to do a show. This is what the show is. It's kind of like thinking about Jax, and I did an episode about this where I was like, oh my gosh, we always like, sorry, my brain goes so fast. I'm already doing an example, but come here for a second. Let's talk about with Vanderpump Rules. So it's kind of like with Jax Taylor. Let's go to Jax Taylor for a moment. And I'm not putting Jax Taylor and Brittany, rather, what's her name, Janet, in the same category. But if you think about it, like Janet, she isn't not doing a show. She is lighting it up. She's entertaining, and she's doing what she needs to do, and she's being in the moment and not necessarily worrying about anything else. And that doesn't always look great. When you live in the present and you are present, you may not get it right all the time, but at least you are authentic. And you could always say, well, at least Janet is authentic, even if it's crap, you know? Not saying Janet is crappy or anything, but she definitely got ridiculed season 1 and 2. Specifically, right, season 1. But nonetheless, Jax Taylor kind of was the same thing. And I think the show is missing a little bit of that. I couldn't really call it authenticity, because was he putting on for the show? Was he a mess? Was he having an issue? Because obviously now he's in the space of sobriety and a new love interest, the publicist. But at least with Jax, you could count on that the mess that you were seeing was purely exactly who he was, whether he turned it on or not. Whereas with Brittany, I'm like, and I shouldn't, like, while I'm talking about Janet and while I'm talking about Jax, I shouldn't go to Brittany, because why does she have to be in this conversation? But I'm just saying, the Valley, to have characters like Janet and what Jax was, better or worse, it's a reality show, and you are watching just all the wild tales that people, you know, are going through. And if every cast member was so curated and did it perfectly, I don't know if you would have a show. And so sticking back to Janet, I think Janet has gotten a little interesting feedback, but I really don't think the show goes very far without Janet season 1, 2, and 3. Whether she befriended Scheana at one point and was opportunistic here and there, I feel like she has a lot of those qualities. I mean, who moves to LA and is Sheena's best friend in 5 seconds? Why is Scheana befriending somebody who just got in proximity to her and the show and all that it comes with? Like, that might have been a little bit by design. I mean, when I worked in radio years ago in the early 2000s, like, there was opportunistic people, but nothing like there is today. And in fact, back then it was more about, yeah, being around the right people was good, but you wanted to work your ass off. You wanted to, put your head down, and do the work, and then you would sort of succeed on your own merit. But once everything switched over to social media and numbers and virality, you really were like swinging at the wind, punching at the wind, unless you had those numbers. I know it from fact, because when I do my channel, not just the 20 years I've worked in radio, but also like 1,500 episodes on randomlyronniejr.com, unless you have somebody sort of pulling you up and giving you this viral buzz, it sometimes doesn't go anywhere. And I believe Janet had an agenda. She had an objective. Are Janet and Scheana great friends? I don't know that answer. Hopefully somebody does answer that question, because I want to know if Janet and Scheana are still great friends. And now I've said it once and I'm going to say it again and again and again. I don't know where the Valley will go after a season 3. This reunion has been so enlightening, kind of like the way that In the City show, season 1 only, like it really shows what shows have legs. Because I counted out the Valley. I didn't count out In the City because I loved Summer House and I loved the spillover and the news stories. It all worked. Whitney and Kenny versus Lindsay, incredible. But the reunions is where you really tell if there's some star power. I mean, star power, it's reality TV, but we get excited about it. It's entertainment. You really get to see if there's something there. I had counted out the Valley. I did. I counted out the Valley. Now I do not. I do not count it out. They just need to kind of work it out, make some switches, take Brittany down to a part-time level, maybe bring in Jax. Now, what do we think about Jax and Lori, the publicist? And now, that allots for Brittany to go run to an interview with People magazine and be like, oh, now I don't have my sparkle. It is Jax Taylor's fault, and I don't have a publicist, and it's the publicist's fault that she's with Jason. Like, all of it is just, you really want to so badly, but this is about the 12,000th time we've heard Brittany losing her sparkle. So I will say, while Jax is a monster, he's been tough on Vanderpump Rules. Those seasons early, though, he was really good. He lost his way. But if he's getting into sobriety, if he's in a new relationship, if it's a little sticky, I don't know. The question that we're asking right now is, do we want to see Jax Taylor on Vanderpump Rules? I'm sorry. Do we want to see Jax Taylor on The Valley? Will Jax Taylor mix it in with the other cast members? I don't know. Maybe Jesse only. But it is a show. Contracts, Bravo may send them out. The production company may send them out. Is Jax welcomed? Or do Jax Taylor and publicist, what's her name? Do they go to the E! Channel? Remember, the E! Channel essentially redeemed the former, but they are the older Real Housewives of New York cast members, because they tried to shop a show to Bravo. This was the older cast members, like the originals. Kelly Ben-Simone, she's season 2, but still original. Luann, Dorinda, Sonia, and Ramona. They shopped a show to Bravo. Bravo didn't take it because they skew younger, which, they had Aaron, Jessel, Sai, and a couple new people. And those gals ended up going to the E! Channel, and the E! Channel's not even with NBC Universal again. So does Jax Taylor say, yeah, I want nothing to do with this? And does he take his new loving relationship, whether that's going to go or not, the interesting crossover between his ex-wife's publicist, now his new girlfriend or whatever, and his sobriety, and even the dynamics between like being on a show, post being this model rockin' body, now you're approaching your 50s. Where do you go and how do you balance it all in a good way? There's not as much opportunities at that time. And I feel like the E! Channel would scoop him right up. But am I crazy to say that it would be interesting to see Jax Taylor mix it in with the Valley cast if there's a 4th season or 5th season of the Valley or 6th season or 7th or whatever? Or has Jax done too much? Is there stuff I don't know about? Like, I don't spend all my time, I watch hour-long YouTube, interviews and stuff of that nature, but I do not scour, Twitter X. I don't look at all that. I don't look at the on the keyboard with the Reddit this, Reddit that. Half the stuff there it could not be further from the truth. So I'm going off what I know. We got to meet people where they are. Jax Taylor is maybe more interesting than he used to be. Maybe he's rehabbed himself a little bit. Maybe he could not help keeping his hand out of the cookie jar. And in this case, the cookie jar is Lori Krebs. And she's got stories of her own. And were you like me, where you underestimated this show, this reality TV show that means nothing? I don't know why we're taking it so seriously, but you underestimated it at the beginning and you're like, you know what? It's actually pretty good. The Valley has been an interesting show. I wish all of the cast members nothing but success. Doing reality TV at this consistent level is not easy, and they are getting busy. They are working hard and they're doing their best. And that is all you could expect with reality TV, television, consumerism for that matter. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with Bravo TV's The Valley.